Dizzle's log, stardate 98989.59. The atheist memes on this planet are idiotic. You may have seen a popular atheist meme featuring a boy asking his father, "Dad, why are there no Christians, Jews, or Muslims on Star Trek?" The father replies, "Because it's the future, son." However, just as atheist memers are wrong about there being no Christians, Jews, or Muslims in the future, they're also wrong about there being no Christians, Jews, or Muslims on Star Trek. And if atheists are wrong about something as uncomplicated as Star Trek, what else are they wrong about? Consider the episode Bread and Circuses from Season 2 of the original series. In January of the year 2327, the Enterprise encounters some space debris, the remains of a ship that had gone missing 6 years earlier. But there are no signs of bodies in the wreckage, so Captain Kirk concludes that the crew must have safely beamed down to some planet. The trajectory of the debris leads them to the planet in question, and that's when they really start emphasizing that this planet is very similar to Earth.
The proportion of land to water is exactly as on your Earth. Density 5.5, diameter 7917 at the equator, atmosphere 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. Again, exactly like Earth.
In fact, technologically, it's very similar to 20th-century Earth.
No sign of atomic power as yet, but far enough along for radio communications, power transportation, an excellent road system.
The excellent road system is the first hint at where they're going with this. Lieutenant Uhura patches in to the television broadcasts of this planet.
Authorities are as yet unable to explain these fresh outbreaks of treasonable disobedience by well-treated, well-protected, intelligent slaves. Now turning to the world of sports and bringing you the taped results of the arena games last night. The first heat involved amateurs. They're petty thieves from city prison, conducted, however, with traditional weapons that provided some amusement. For a few moments. In the second heat, a slightly more professional display in the spirit of our splendid fast when gladiator Claudius Marcus killed the last of the barbarians, William B. Harrison, in an excellent example.
Did you catch Uhura wince as one gladiator killed another gladiator?
For a few moments.
Remember that wince for later. So, slaves and televised gladiator contests in a world with 20th century technology. See where they're going yet?
Slaves. And gladiator. What are we seeing? 20th century Rome?
Yup. Spock points out that one of the gladiators in the broadcast was one of the missing crewmen. So there's only one thing to do.
We're beaming down.
Cue the intro. Sorry, copyright. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beam down outside of a large city so as not to attract attention, but they're captured almost instantly by a gang of thugs in gray sweatsuits with hunting rifles. Spock keeps pointing out the Earth parallels.
What do you call those? I call them ears.
Trying to be funny.
Never. Colloquial 20th century English. An amazing parallel.
The main thug wants to kill them, but he knows that their leader, Septimus, doesn't approve of violence. So he takes the away team to Septimus. Turns out that the gang of thugs is actually a cult of sun worshippers.
Keep always in your mind, Flavius, that our way is peace.
For which we are grateful. For we're men of peace ourselves.
Are you children of the sun?
Members of the cult are worried at first because they think that Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are Roman soldiers sent to capture them. The away team realizes that the cult is made up of escaped slaves and gladiators. The cult is officially non-violent, but the ex-gladiators are so used to killing that they have a bit of trouble not reacting violently. Kirk puts it all together.
Very much like Earth. An amazing example of Hodgkin's law of parallel planet development. But on this Earth, Rome never fell. A world ruled by emperors who can trace their line back 2,000 years to their own Julius and Augustus Caesars.
So, in this world, the Roman Empire never fell. It continued on until the 20th century. That's why they have televised gladiator games. The away team is still looking for survivors from the other ship, so Kirk asks Septimus if he's heard of anyone arriving from other worlds.
Perhaps you've heard, let's say, an impossible story, or a rumor of men who came from the sky, or from other worlds.
There are no other worlds.
The stars.
Lights shining through from heaven. It is where the sun is.
The cult eventually decides to help the away team by leading them into the city to look for survivors.
Flavius will guide you. We will provide you with suitable clothing. I caution you, take great care. The police are everywhere. May the blessings of the sun be upon you.
The big guy, the one who first captured them, is actually a runaway gladiator champion named Flavius Maximus. As Flavius is leading them towards the city, they're caught by Roman soldiers who are thrilled that they've captured the mighty Flavius Maximus. They're taken to jail, where Kirk learns a bit more about the cult of sun worshippers.
When the slaves began to worship the sun, they became discontent again. When did all this happen?
Long ago. Perhaps as long ago as the beginning of the Empire. The message of the sun, that all men are brothers, was kept from us. Perhaps I'm a fool to believe it.
You go on believing it, Flavius. All men are brothers.
Flavius is soon sent back to the gladiator ring, which is in a television studio, but he tells the guards that he won't fight.
Your friends are waiting for you. You've already been matched for the morning games. Come.
I will not fight. I am a brother of the sun.
Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are then confronted by Merrick, the captain of the ship that was destroyed. Merrick informs them that he basically became a traitor and decided he'd rather live in this Roman city where he's now second in command. The members of his crew who complied became Roman citizens. Those who didn't were forced to become gladiators. Merrick and the proconsul Claudius Marcus order Kirk to beam down the entire crew of the Enterprise so that they too can decide either to integrate into Roman society or to die on television. If Kirk refuses, Spock and McCoy will have to become gladiators. Kirk refuses, so Spock and McCoy are sent to the ring. One of the gladiators they're supposed to face is Flavius. Flavius squares off with McCoy, but he's barely going through the motions. The guards start lashing him to make him fight, so he tries to put on a good show and to help McCoy as they're fighting.
At least defend yourself.
I am defending myself.
Like that, you fool. Hold your weapon higher.
Flavius gets McCoy on the ground but doesn't want to finish him off. Spock knocks his opponent unconscious, then uses the Vulcan neck pinch on Flavius. Everyone is enraged that they didn't get to see any killing. The proconsul sends Spock and McCoy back to their cell. After realizing that Kirk isn't going to order his crew to beam down to the planet, the proconsul decides to execute Kirk the next day. But just before Kirk is executed, Flavius lays down his life to protect him.
Brothers! If you want death, fight me!
The Enterprise then cuts the power in the area, allowing Kirk to try to rescue Spock and McCoy. But the guards surround them. Merrick, having been berated by the proconsul and having just seen Flavius sacrifice himself to help Kirk, tries to redeem himself by contacting the Enterprise. Merrick is quickly stabbed to death, but he tosses the communicator to Kirk, who tells the Enterprise to beam them out of the Roman Empire. Now here's where things get awesome. Back on the Enterprise, McCoy mentions how much he liked Flavius.
Captain, I see on your report Flavius was killed. I am sorry. I like that huge sun worshiper.
But Spock is a little confused about the religious beliefs of the sun worshippers.
I wish we could have examined that belief of his more closely. It seems illogical for a sun worshiper to develop a philosophy of total brotherhood. Sun worship is usually a primitive superstition religion.
That's when Uhura enters the discussion.
I'm afraid you have it all wrong, Mr. Spock, all of you. I've been monitoring some of their old-style radio waves. The Empire spokesman trying to ridicule their religion. But he couldn't.
While Kirk and Spock and McCoy were trying to survive, Uhura was learning more about this sun worship.
Well, don't you understand? It's not the sun up in the sky. It's the Son of God.
No Christians on Star Trek, right?
Caesar and Christ, they had them both. And the word is spreading only now.
But the atheist meme said that there are no Christians on Star Trek.
Philosophy of total love and total brotherhood.
So this episode was about a planet where the message of Jesus was successfully suppressed by the Roman Empire for 2,000 years. Since the Christian message was suppressed, it never occurred to these Romans that all human beings are created in the image of God. It never occurred to them to love your enemies, or to be at peace with all men, or to let all that you do be done in love, or to increase and abound in love for one another and for all people, or to seek after that which is good for one another and for all people, or to pray and give thanks on behalf of all men, or to show every consideration for all men, or to pursue peace with all men, or to honor all people. So the Roman Empire on this planet never had a reason to change. But the message of Christ finally emerged in the 20th century, and the world was starting to change.
It will replace their imperial Rome, but it will happen in their 20th century.
Wouldn't it be something to watch, to be a part of? To see it happen all over again.
In the Star Trek universe, then, there are planets like Earth across the universe, and Jesus comes to those planets too. So there are a lot of Christians on Star Trek. Nice try, atheist memers. But there's a more interesting point in this episode. Remember when Uhura winced as one gladiator stabbed another?
For a few moments.
That was good writing. Why would one human being slaughtering another human being for entertainment bother her? She's a seasoned Starfleet officer. Why would that bother her? Here's where a Dawkins fan will jump in and say, because people just know that it's wrong to kill other people like this. We just know it. We seek the good of other people by nature. We just do. Really? Because back in the 1st century, and the 2nd century, and the 3rd century, the favorite form of entertainment among the Romans was the gladiatorial games. The crowd would cheer with glee as slaves and prisoners were forced to hack each other to pieces. One of the most beloved spectacles was starving a large animal like a bear and then having it kill and eat people, and then cutting open the bear to see the undigested body parts of the humans it had eaten during the games. How did people react to that 2,000 years ago? With rapturous cheers of delight. If we're all just naturally horrified at the thought of such grotesque violence, why was this the favorite form of entertainment for an entire population? And if that was the favorite form of entertainment for an entire population, why was it eventually abolished? We know exactly why. Christianity began to spread in the 1st century, and Christians were horrified at the bloodshed of the gladiator games because they believed that human beings are created in the image of God. So they boycotted the games, and this was a popular complaint against Christians. Marcus Minucius Felix recorded an early Roman condemnation of the Christian community as follows: "You do not attend our shows. You take no part in the processions. You are not present at our public banquets. You abhor the sacred games. Christians didn't want to watch human beings hacking each other to pieces. Within a century of Christianity becoming a legal religion, the gladiatorial games were abolished throughout the empire. The British historian William Lecky comments, "There is scarcely any single reform so important in the moral history of mankind as the suppression of the gladiatorial shows, a feat that must be almost exclusively ascribed to the Christian Church." Here's the point. Uhura winces as other people cheer because she has absorbed some ideas about the significance and dignity and worth of all human beings. Those ideas were introduced in the Jewish scriptures, expanded upon in the Christian scriptures, and then spread by Christians. But Captain Kirk and the rest of the crew all have the same ideas about the universal brotherhood of all men.
All men are brothers.
Everyone on the Enterprise has absorbed Christian ideas about our nature and status, in addition to a ton of other Christian ideas they've absorbed without realizing where the ideas came from, which means that, in a sense, they're all Christians. But you've also absorbed these ideas, so in a sense, you're a Christian too, regardless of what else you happen to believe. You may reject the core teachings of the gospel. You may even reject the existence of God, but that would just mean that you're a heretical Christian. I find it interesting that just 50 or 60 years ago, non-Christians still understood this. Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, was a secular humanist. He had quite a bit of contempt for religion. And later, he made sure that religious ideas were excluded from his shows. But back then, even humanists seemed to understand where some of their ideas came from. And they didn't have a problem saying it. Now, in the post-Dawkins era, if you ask an atheist about how our moral views changed over time, he'll tell you that Christianity was all about killing and slaughtering and enslaving until finally, at last, human beings started not taking it too seriously, and then people started loving one another. Total nonsense. In reality, Christianity inserts certain ideas into a society. And these ideas spread because we are created in the image of God, and we can still recognize the voice of our Creator. But then, after the ideas spread, once they permeate society, once everyone accepts them, people suddenly conclude, well, everyone has these ideas, so we must have these ideas by nature. A generation later, people claim not only that those ideas are just natural human ideas, but also that Christianity teaches the opposite. And then they attack Christianity using the ideas that they got from Christianity. It's like standing on a man's shoulders in order to spit on his head. The amazing part is that these post-Dawkins atheists, who are completely out of touch with reality, who have rewritten all of history to bring it in line with their fantasies, are the same people who claim to be champions of reason, champions of evidence, people who believe only what the evidence proves, people as logical as Spock. And instead of even trying to defend their claims with anything remotely resembling an actual investigation, they spread their claims through stupid memes. Live long and prosper, atheists. You naughty, naughty Christians.